Hey everyone, welcome to this special that we're doing here on Here to Zen. We're going to have a look back at some of the bands that have opened for Kiss over the years since their first tour here in 1980. Kiss are a massive part of my musical landscape. First real band I've got into, and they are always my favourite band. So I thought a fitting end to their time here is to have a look back at the bands that supported them. So we go back to 1980, we've got Noel from theeyes joining us. They opened on the Unmasked tour. Then we go to Skenie from thepoor, who opened on the 95 Kiss My Ass Downunder tour, as well as one show on the Endoftheroad tour. We've got Tim from theandroids, and he'll be touching base with us to talk about the symphony show the Androids opened. We've got Randall Waller, who filled in as part of the Dead Daisies when they opened for Kiss. And lastly, we're going to have Stu from the Superjesus, who opened for the band in Adelaide on the Endoftheroad tour. It's a really cool look back and a trip down memory lane for some of these guys. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to pop some of my photos on the end. I've been lucky enough to take photos in a few of the tours here, as well as work with members on various projects, as well as ex-members. So it's a really fun one for me. I hope you enjoy it, sharing far and wide. And hope everyone that's going to go to the Sydney show like me on the 7th enjoys it and says goodbye one last time. So thanks to Kiss. Thanks to you all for watching. Thank you.
Welcome to Hanging with H2ZHW, the genre-free music and lifestyle podcast presented by H2ZHW magazine. This is the place to come to celebrate all types of music, lifestyle, and more. We are glad you have come along for the ride, so sit back and enjoy the episode.
Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you and welcome.
Thank you very much.
So this is actually really special, as technically you were the first ever live band I saw because you opened for Kiss on the 1980 Unmasked tour.
That's right. That was the band called theeyes.
It was. So for everyone joining tonight, we're speaking with Noel, who is in the band theeyes, that had the distinct pleasure or probably fright of opening during Kiss's height in 1980 on the Unmasked tour. You opened the entire Unmasked tour, so welcome and thank you for joining me.
It's good to be here.
So for those people who may not know about the theeyes, tell me about how the band formed and where they formed.
The theeyes were a Sydney band, and they had been gigging around Sydney through the late 70s, and they went through a succession of keyboard players until I came along, and then things gelled more cohesively. And with the upcoming release of a new single and a new album, we were given the opportunity to do the Kiss tour to promote the single and to promote the album. And for me, joining the band, it was a fairly fast uptake of all the material and preparation. And then when the time finally came for us to join the Kiss entourage in their first concert in Perth at the Entertainment Centre, there was a national strike by the pilots.
Yep.
And we were stuck in Sydney and wondering how we're going to get to Perth with no planes. So the influence of the Kiss, the Kiss phenomenon that had so much influence at the time, they were very clever. They put us, because the strike was just domestic pilots, so the organisers put us on an international flight out of Sydney that was headed towards somewhere overseas, but stopping off a layover in Perth So they put us all on this international flight. We jumped the plane. We got off at Perth and stayed there. But they had so much power and influence. And we were on standby in Sydney. We were told we don't know which flight you'll be on or when you're leaving. And they said, just be ready, be on standby. And I was actually in the hairdresser getting some color. I wanted a little bit of a blonde tint in my hair. And I was covered in all this gray clay. And someone came in and said, hey, you've got to be at the airport in half an hour. So they just ripped the cap off and washed out all this grey clay. And by the time I got to the airport into the VIP lounge, I walked in through the door and all that colour had set. And the guitarist, Don Berkey, looked at me in shock and he exclaimed, carrots? Because my hair had turned bright orange.
No.
But it was all last minute rush, got to be ready at all cost, be at the airport, and they got us to Perth to be ready for the concert.
And
orange hair and all.
Well, you would have stood out because you were playing stadiums. You know, they weren't tiny little pubs and clubs. It was, you know, minimum of probably 20,000 seat venue. So at least you were going to be seen behind the keyboards on such a big stage.
Yeah, they were big venues, and for us, playing the Perth Entertainment Centre was probably the biggest venue we had ever played, plus all the equipment and the scale of size for the Kiss concert with all their flying through the air, and it's quite a production. But we were really well received in Perth. In fact, one of the reviews in the newspaper the following morning said a big headline that said, "Theeyes have it."
Wow.
They gave us a really good review, which was a great way to start the tour. And then we finally got to Melbourne after going through Adelaide. Adelaide was an interesting experience. We're at the Adelaide Oval, the cricket oval, open air venue, and the crowd didn't want to see anything but Kiss.
Yeah.
They were there to see Kiss. And I was playing, we're doing our set leading into the Kiss performance, and I was being pelted by beer cans and chips and Jaffas and even a thong.
Wow.
across the keyboard. And the crowd were quite impatient. So compared to Perth, which was an indoor performance, where we had a great response, Adelaide was the opposite.
And then you get to Melbourne. Melbourne, I
yeah.
think, was one or two shows. I can't remember. I think it was, you know, I know Sydney was 2 shows, but how did you feel playing like the big cricket grounds and things like that? Because on the East Coast, you did Lang Park up here, which in Brisbane, which is now known as Suncorp Stadium. And in Sydney, of course, where I saw you, you did the old showgrounds. And Melbourne, maybe that was Waverley or something like that. But yeah, they were huge.
Yeah, Melbourne was VFL Park.
VFL Park.
And we have a photo of theeyes on stage from the back of the stage, looking out to the crowd, right up to the back of the stadium. And I believe there was something like 30 or 40,000 people there. But one of the things that shocked me arriving just before the performance began, when I looked out, it was the front of the stage was, or down on the ground, and on the ground in front of the stage, there was a big Hessian wall, like a security wall. And I peeked out through this Hessian wall at the crowd down on ground level. And above the crowd was just a sea of like a black swarm of birds, and everyone was throwing everything they could that was available. They're just throwing it up and up, and it was just constantly swarming above the crowd. And I thought, oh, what have we got ourselves into here? But yeah, seeing that huge crowd, they were so alive, they were so active, and then we got on and just ripped it up, and the response was fantastic, and that energy of feeling such a big crowd with you, enjoying it, that was pretty awesome.
Now that tour was dubbed Kissteria by the band. You know, there was lots of bounties on their heads to get them in the papers, and you know they had to take over floors of hotels and do secret little cruises out in the harbour. How much of that filtered down to you? Did you have to sort of be careful of where you guys went because of the guilt by association almost?
Yeah, I had a funny experience in Brisbane, actually. We were staying in the same hotel as Kiss, and I was walking down the corridor, and I didn't know at the time, but the corridor went down and took a left-hand turn, and there's this big burly security guard standing in the corner of the corridor. And just as I got to the corner to go left, the door opened where the security guard was standing, and Acefrehley was staggering out with a champagne glass in his hand. And he said to the security guard, I'm just going out for a while. And the security guard put up his hand across the door and said to Acefrehley, no, you're not. And pushed him back inside the hotel room and closed the door. And that was a bit of an insight into the life of superstars on the road, because that hotel in Brisbane was absolutely surrounded by manic, screaming females. There were just girls everywhere, and it was not safe to go out.
Yeah, that security guard was likely a guy called Big John, who all the Kiss fans will know. He's probably about the size of that door that Ace tried to come out of.
Yeah, it was a very definite and convincing no you're not, and Ace didn't question it. He just staggered back with his champagne glass, and yeah, he did as he was told. One of the outstanding things in Sydney was the size of the PA system, and at the sound check in the afternoon I took a photo standing out in the grounds of this huge PA system. And I later was showing my photo to some of the sound tech guys in Sydney, and they were saying that that was the largest PA ever assembled. It created history. It was a monster PA, the largest to be created at the time. And they wanted my photo. And I had to haggle with them, and ended up they paid me a bottle of scotch for the rights to use that photo.
Not bad for 1980.
But that PA, whatever they used in Brisbane, was so loud, it was shaking the buildings, the homes and the houses around Lang Park, around the stadium. And the locals were calling the police and trying to stop the concert because their houses were vibrating with the sheer volume of this giant PA.
Yeah, I've got a newspaper clipping somewhere that said it could be heard up to 7 kilometres away.
Yeah, and when they played, they wanted everybody to enjoy it.
Yeah, did you guys, after your set, did you go out and watch from the crowd or watch from side stage? Like, what did you take in?
Yeah, we had free reign to walk around, like down into the front security section. We could just stand right at the edge of the stage and look up, or side stage, backstage, and we were wandering around and taking it all in, because they had an under the stage section too that was curtained off. And I often wondered what's going on underneath the stage that is so private and so secure. And I never got to go in there.
Yeah, probably not a very PG area back in 1980.
Someone told me that they had oxygen in there, and that between sets they would recharge with oxygen. And watching them on stage, the way they used to so much energy into their performance, so I could believe a shot of oxygen would would help things go more smoothly.
Yeah. Now, after the tour, what happened to the eyes?
Yeah. Well, we had the album released, and we were getting good reviews. Everything was going great. We had great management in Sydney, great promotion, great opportunities. But then the politics, it's I don't know whether it's like you get stars in your eyes and you think, oh, like I've made the big time, and your head swells up.
Yep.
And you kind of lose it a little bit. And there were only 4 of us, but there were things, dynamics going on, a little bit of politics, and we didn't sustain the energy that we had after the Kiss tour to keep the momentum going, which is a real shame because it was a great band. The songs, the music had so much potential, but just between the personalities, that's where the politics got in the way. And I don't think we were managed properly at the time to get over those personal issues. And we went separate ways, and the band folded.
And at the time when you came out, not only were you a new band, but you were essentially touring with a new version of Kiss. So you had ericcarr coming in to replace petercriss. Kiss had changed a bit and gone from that jazzy sort of swagger of petercriss to ericcarr, who was just a complete and utter beast behind the drums. So people, while I know kids in the crowd were like waiting for Kiss, you never know. The 50-year-old me almost that saw you back then, you probably have some potential market just within the Kiss fans alone to remember that band they saw.
Well, I've been in touch. It's very sad to say that the guitarist Don and the bass player Gary have passed away just recently, actually. But I've been in contact with the drummer,
yep.
Nick Ahern, and we're just starting to re-establish our relationship after 20 years. And just thinking about, maybe some of the possibilities of what to do with the Eyes legacy.
Sure. What are your memories of the individual members of Kiss? Because you may have had a bit of interaction with them at the time. As I said, it was a new thing. Eric was brand new to the band.
We didn't actually get to interact with them very much at all. They were highly protected, guarded, top security. Didn't socialize with them. Didn't have any opportunities to have a chat, or we were lucky to get a photo shoot with them.
Yep.
So we were not connected to them. It was a disconnected experience. So I can't say that we got to know them or had any opportunities to really have a chat or anything like that.
Sure. Now, around that time, there is so much news footage of that tour, it's ridiculous. But I haven't seen any news footage of you guys on stage. Was anything like that archived?
No, I haven't seen any footage. The occasional photo, but no, I think we were a bit overshadowed.
Well, they're quite large men.
Yeah, and the Eyes were a whole new product that was bursting onto the scene in all the other capital cities. Nobody had heard about us. We'd never toured there before. So apart from Perth giving us a good start with the Eyes Have It, that sort of response gave us a lot of confidence to do the tour and do it well. And we had a good response, but I don't think as good as it was of no consequence when the next band coming on is Kiss.
Yeah. And we talking about Kiss, that's why we're here. did you think that, that was 1980, we're now 2023, did you think they would still be going?
It's interesting because I've just been talking to some colleagues just in the last 24 hours about just how long were those guys able to sustain that level of energy and touring across that many decades. How did they manage to keep it going? And the crowds kept coming. I'm proud to tell my sons that I did that national tour, and one of my sons was in America, and Kiss just happened to be playing down the road at Austin, so he went along, and he said he absolutely loved it. And he's like a generation removed from my generation, and he said that the show was just phenomenal. So like from one generation to another generation, that pulling power is just phenomenal, and for them to sustain that for such a long time, it's quite remarkable.
If you had Gene and Paul in front of you now, because they're the only two guys that are still in the band from when you toured with them, and you got your chance to have 5 minutes with them, what would you say to them in regards to that 1980 tour?
Yeah, I'd be stumped. I wouldn't know what to say to guys like that. And what do you say? How do you have a conversation? How do you rise to being anything of worth to be able to converse with such eminence? I'm surprised they even remember.
It was a very special time for them, that 1980. It's probably the one thing they talk about the most is that first tour to Australia and their first tour to Japan. That because that momentum they got, as they said, they dubbed it Kissteria, and they didn't come back for 15 years after that. So, for a lot of people, that scarred a lot of brains in 1980 in a perfectly good way.
I think it was because of the support band.
Absolutely.
Got the audience in the right frame of mind, got them in the right headspace. When Kiss came on, it was just up from there.
Yeah, you're only as good as your support act. No, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, it was the crowning glory of my career to be able to participate with that level of management, the coordination, the quality of the production, the hysteria. At that time, it was really something.
Alrighty, so yeah, how the fuck did you land the slot on the 95 tour? Like, More Wine Waited Please was massive, so that's a no-brainer. But yeah. what were the planets that aligned to get you on that Kiss My Ass Downunder tour?
Wow, mate, to be quite honest, I can't remember. I think we were, when I was talking to whoever it was that brought him out, I remember saying along the lines of like, who else is going to do it? Like,
yep.
who's done big stadiums before? Like, let's go.
Yep. And the thing is, a lot of bands weren't stadium ready. The Poor was at the time.
Yeah.
The Poor were chomping at the bit.
Definitely.
To see you guys live, you translate great on any stage, but on a big stage, it's just game on.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So you did
stages.
Yeah, you did the entire tour. So you kicked off in Perth.
Yeah.
And then did Adelaide, would have been Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, I think, along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a bit weird for you guys because you're also part of I don't know if you went to any, but the convention tour was at the same time. So that traveling museum. Did you catch any of that stuff?
Nah. I was too busy.
Too busy?
Too busy doing our own thing.
What was it like the first day you walked in Perth? Because they brought over their Sphinx stage as well, the big, massive, moving, talking Sphinx.
Yeah.
What was it
That's
like
right.
walking in that first day, seeing that big bastard thing?
Oh no, we'd done those big stages before, so
Yep.
I mean, it's always an eye opener,
Yep.
What's this band going to bring, and you go, oh, cool, and then you just turn it in your mind like, what are we going to do? Well,
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of opening bands don't realise that some people may have never seen them before. Some people may be diehard fans, and they've got anywhere from half an hour to an hour to just steamroll and make an impression that gets the night off to the right start.
Yeah.
You guys weren't, you didn't have many albums under your belt at that point. I think the first one was out, or maybe the EP as well.
Yeah, we had 2 EPs and
Yeah.
the album out. Yeah.
So you had enough to sort of draw on when making a set list, but More One Way to Please was just a no-brainer. It was the last song. But when you guys go into a situation like that, do you just go, look, we're just a steamroller, game on?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And plus on those big shows, you only got, they're always short sets. So we always go, right, let's put all the ball terrors all in one short set and just go hard. So
yeah, and from what I can remember, because again, it's a long bloody time ago.
yeah.
I remember you weren't really talking much between the songs. A quick thank you, a quick here's what's coming next, and it was just punch after punch after punch after punch.
That's it. To get as many songs in the set is the go. Where when we're doing our own shows, which is like an hour and a half, you can get a bit personal with the crowd, as you do. But when it's those big shows, it's just balls out. Let's get the songs into these people.
Yeah. Now, from what I remember, again, so long ago, I remember the show in Sydney, more specific, and you get to the last song and you were gone. You were gone into the stadium. You pretty much did a lap of honor. And I just remember, unfortunately, when opening bands play, you're playing, if you're lucky, everyone's in, but you're playing to normally a half to a 3/4 full.
Yeah.
And I just remember you literally getting up in the stands in people's faces, and just the look on their faces was just one of kind of utter horror at the time, because you were sweaty and you were gnarly,
jumping over the chairs.
Seats, and you just weren't having them sitting down. I remember you literally standing in front of the guy in Sydney until he got up.
Yeah.
So is that like the MO for you back then? Was just like, I've got you for this amount of time, and you're done. You're mine.
Yeah, it still is, man. Every show, I still like getting out in the crowd and just being one with the people, because when it comes down to it, we're all punters as well. We all like to go and see a good band, and when someone comes out in the crowd, you're like, oh fuck yeah, come over to me, And I try and do that. It's good fun, Yeah.
Now, opening bands sometimes get restricted with the amount of lights, the amount of sound. The overwhelming story I'm hearing is Kiss are pretty good with just letting you have at it. Was that what you found?
Yeah, they were for us on that tour, because we did the whole tour. That last one that we did last year, what was it, last year?
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, last year. They restricted us to only this, like the meat part of the stage.
Yeah.
Couldn't really go out onto the wings. Well, you could, but they had no lights out there, so you were in darkness. So there was no point in going out there. So, but they gave us the full run on. They gave us the screen at the back to put the banner up, and the sound guys were awesome. So.
Did you have much interaction with them on that first tour?
On the first tour, yeah. I hung out with them a lot, actually.
And they were pretty engaging for you guys being an up and coming band.
Yeah. Gene was actually an absolute gentleman, and Paul was like super nice, you know. The other guys were just cool, you know.
Yep.
Didn't really hang out with them much. It was mainly Gene and Paul.
Okay, yep.
Mm.
Did they get you to help select the local talent that they'd bring on stage every night at all?
No, but in the hospitality, I'd be first in the hospitality room every night, and
Yep.
with Gene. We're like, right, oh, here, what would you like to drink, ladies?
That would have been a sight to behold.
Yeah, but he's a gentleman, man.
Yeah. And then fast forward, you get the one slot last year.
Yeah.
Which for Dan, being the new boy and a Kiss fan, he would have been just overwhelmed with it all, I reckon.
Yeah, and it was his first time on a big stage too. So you know, first time doing an entertainment center, and yeah, one off the bucket list, you know, many more to come. But yeah, it was good to get him on there, you know.
Did you go back and do a band shot with him?
No, we didn't, but we caught up because it was crazy out the back, and they had so much stuff going on, you know. There was people everywhere, but we did catch up. We caught up in the hallway, and I walked straight up to Gene and I said, "You remember me?" He goes, "Of course I remember you, man." So it was cool. We had a chat for a bit, and then they were going on, so that was it. And then we had to fly out that night, so it was like a real short stay.
You're in the midst of like a pretty whirlwind run. Then you were doing show after show after show last year, so
yeah,
even to find time to get on that one show would have been great.
Yeah, it was good. It was because as you know, it got postponed like a couple of years, and it was good to finally get it done, you know.
Yeah, I bet. What was the one thing that you took away touring with them in '95? Like what was that one thing that you went, okay, here's where we need to like step this up?
More money.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty much. I mean, they've got that all of their, you know, it's all in front of them. You know, they can just ask for anything they want.
Yep.
And that's the hardest thing about productions and being on the road. You know, you want bigger and better, but you can't afford it. So you just got to deal with what you got and just keep giving everything you got, and hoping that it comes your way.
If you could go down to that Sydney show and get 5 minutes with Gene or Paul, what do you reckon you'd say to them as they kick off for the last time in Australia?
It was great to be a part.
Do you have a favourite Kiss song?
Cold Gin.
When's the Poor going to cover that?
I don't know. Oh, we used to back in the day. So, yeah, we did do it.
In the Poor Boys days?
Yeah, the Poor Boys days. Well, you know, when we started off as a cover band and up and down and shit. Yeah. It's cold gin time again.
Awesome, man. I'm going to let you go as a quick hit and run to get this out of the way for publication, but thanks for jumping on and sharing your memories. And everyone, the Poor are touring ridiculously large amounts around this country. If you don't see them and if you haven't heard the new album, you're fucking crazy.
Cheers, buddy.
No worries, man. I'll see you sometime soon.
Take care.
See you, mate. Bye.
See ya.
So, well, Kiss arrived yesterday. As we saw, they had their throes of fans who somehow work out flight plans and wait for them at airports. But I'm going to take you back to 2003, the Androids opening the Kiss Symphony show. You've told me before, like Do It With Madonna was just like bang out the gates.
Yeah.
You know, so all the planets lined for you to be on that tour. Now, I can't remember. Telstra Dome's over 50,000, isn't it?
Yep.
Was that your biggest show at that point?
No, we'd done a bigger show. I think we did an 80,000 in London at the Millennium Dome.
Right.
So that was like, the band was not that we pulled 80,000 on our own. It was a festival gig, but we were riding high. You know, we were traveling around England in a tour bus, sleeping. You know, we had the sleeper thing and a lounge room and a kitchen, everything on the tour bus, and packing out gigs everywhere we played. So it was the band was doing really well. And then our manager, obviously, at the time, knew I was a huge Kiss fan. We had Kiss posters up on the walls while we were, recording that album.
Yep.
For the first Androids album. And so, it just that they were coming to town. The manager had a meeting with, Andrew McManus, and spoke to Doc, and they put us on the show. I think it ticked a few boxes. Obviously, we had a hit single, and I was a huge Kiss fan, and I think they just realised that it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. The one thing I love about you being a Kiss fan, being a guitar player, is you can appreciate basically every guitar player Kiss has had. So,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I know you can play the ace licks in your sleep. Give you a Jackson, you'll probably rip some Vinnie licks out. And
I love Vinnie.
And your son for
I love
Bruce.
them all. Yeah, no, I love them all. It was, it was. I think you and I have talked about this before, but I remember being in that rehearsal when I was lucky enough to get asked to sing on the tour for Bruce in Australia. I was a huge fan of the band through Bruce's period of time. I had the posters of Bruce on my wall as well,
Yeah.
So I was really excited to be there with him on stage singing those 80s no makeup songs.
Yeah.
But I remember this one time just standing in the rehearsal room with Bruce, and his Marshall was actually my Marshall, because he was using my amp.
Yeah.
And he loved, and it was pointed right at me, and I was just standing there not playing guitar, singing, and just watching him play. He's such a beautiful, clean, precise player, just a really good musician. So I've had these kind of moments where interacted with them. Look at the symphony gig, which have been just surreal for me. But the symphony gig, it was a big deal, not only to meet the band, and by the way, I thought that was Tommy's first gig, technically his second gig, but really it was his first proper gig. And he did a great job. I was disappointed Ace wasn't there, sure. People were. It wasn't Tommy's fault.
No.
So I just was obviously very excited. I think Tommy did a great job. I watched the show, the sound check, everything. And I was talking to Doc heaps, and it was a big deal to me, like you, as an old metalhead from back in the day, to talk to Doc McGee.
Yep.
And that was exciting for me too, A lot of my childhood was wrapped up in the bands that Doc managed, and he was a celebrity. We all knew who Doc was, even when we were kids.
Yep.
He's just a big personality, and he was awesome, fantastic guy. He even offered us the symphony gig. He thought that we'd done a good job, which was very nice, because he asked us if we wanted to go and do that. Remember where after that they did the Aerosmith Kiss tour?
Yeah.
Doc asked us if we wanted to go and do that. And we spoke to our American record label, and they wouldn't give us tour support for it because they didn't think it was the right demographic. They were like, no, you need to be going out with Good Charlotte, not with Kiss and Aerosmith. Which kind of, I get what they were saying, but I was, I would have loved to have done it, but I get it. We were like a power pop band, more like, we probably could have gone out with Cheap Trick, and it would have made more sense.
Yeah.
But
I think about the Androids album, and I go, the bands that Kiss took out in 03, 04, around there, were kind of power pop. They did have bands very similar to you, and I've always appreciated that about the various bands I've seen open for them. They might be similar, they might be completely different,
Yep.
But if you want to, I've always been of the school that you get there to see the opening band, especially if you've never seen them before, because you never know what you might find,
Yeah.
And I think you would have translated.
it worked. Like it seemed, it seemed to me, we'll find out in the comments, but it seemed to me that the crowd were receptive to us, and their crew were great to us. The band were great to us. Doc was great to us. Everyone was really, really great to us. And we were very respectful, knew our place, kept out of the way, did everything right. But, they didn't limit us on. The stage was huge. So there was no kind of need for them to limit us on stage. They even, when we sort of went up there, because the way Kiss set up with the it's almost like a three-piece band, like the Beatles.
Yeah.
So they have the mic and the mic. They don't have a center mic. So, but I had a center mic and the two guys on either side of me, Matt and Sam, and they were nice enough to let us move things around. So I went up and said, "Would you mind if we move Gene's mic?" Blah. And the crew kind of looked at me, and I think they were kind of like, "Oh, I can't believe he just asked that," but they were like, "Yeah, okay." It wasn't a big deal, and I said it in a very respectful way. It was amazing. And then to be on stage and to turn around and, the psych, which is covering their, because back then they were still using the wall of amps.
Yeah, yeah.
So it wasn't the LED screen. So you could see, I could see through the psych wall of amps. And I just turned around and there's Marty on the drum kit. And behind him, I could just see this like skyscraper of Marshalls.
Yep.
And I was just like, wow, I can't believe I'm on stage in front of that wall of amps,
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I've only ever done one proper stage walk before on their stage. And I think it was like the 13 tour. I just remember walking out before the opening band when, one of the boys took me out in the crew to walk across the stage. And you get this really uneasy, nervous feeling, even if you just walk, like everything looks massive.
Isn't it epic?
Yeah. And like you were talking about Doc before, the one thing I love about Doc and his celebrity on his own is actually how he treats the fans. So last year I did those couple of shows and I was in Adelaide and I was standing with Ruddy.
Yep.
And I'm actually going to ask him when I see him, but every time, as you know, Paul flies out of the audience.
Yep.
Right before that happened, on every show, you saw Doc on one side of the arena and Danny, their security guy, going down to the platform. I don't know if Paul's got a deal that they have to like go out and make sure he makes it okay or something like that. But Doc.
Well, it's probably just the security, just to make sure no one kind of, tries to jump up and grab him.
Yeah, I know. But all I know is he walked around and he literally had pockets full of guitar picks. Any kids he saw, he stopped.
Oh, good on him.
He was just loading them up. Yeah. And I was just like, that's what it takes to be Doc McGee. Like, he's the biggest
he's a legend.
Relationship guy in the business.
Beautiful. I love that. What a great story. It was funny because he was laughing at me. Because the gig, I was like, I ran out and I wanted to buy the tour book and buy a t-shirt and all this sort of stuff. And I bought it all back because I didn't want to be disrespectful and ask him, because I knew I sort of thought he'd probably give him to me, but I'm not going to do that because it's rude. I'm the support band. I'm lucky to be there and they're paying us to be there. So I just went and bought all the stuff. And then I came backstage with it. He was just laughing at me. Go, "You're crazy. I could have given you as much as you want, Yeah. And I was like, no, I didn't want to ask. I thought that would have been a bit rude and disrespectful of me. So, and I think he appreciated that, but I appreciated him for being so cool about it. He knew I was a big fan, and it was a good vibe. It was a really good vibe.
And as you said, it was Tommy's official first show, and sort of Peter's last one in Australia. And there's lots of people are always going to have their opinions. Like I think, them having the conductor there really helped Peter and kept him. He probably played the best he's played with Kiss, in my opinion, when you look back at the footage and things like that. Like I think.
Oh, no, not. You can't include that in the old days.
No, I mean since he came back
in the 70s. Yeah.
Like don't get me wrong, the '97 tour, he was a monster.
Mm-hmm.
But Peter's never going to be a technical drummer. He might be a bit behind the beat, might have a bit more attack. His fills are a bit all over the shop. That's what makes him Peter.
I agree.
But when I saw the footage, and yeah, I know they probably went in the studio and sorted some shit out. Every band does, who cares? But you can see him watching that conductor like a hawk. I think I think he thrived on it. I think it made him feel important. You know.
Yep.
If you look at the footage, they say they put like a little monitor on his kick drum so he could watch the conductor.
Yeah, it's like doing a musical theatre show.
Yeah, I think it actually made him feel special. Because it's the Gene and Paul show, no bones.
Yep.
But I think that made Peter play out of his skin just that little bit more. And you know, I know a lot of people that were at that rehearsal, and they reckon that in the rehearsal he was just beast, like just going hard.
Fantastic.
But then you look at Tommy, okay, he's always going to cop flack for wearing Ace's makeup. I really don't care. I think that he does the job justice. I do struggle a little bit when he plays the Bruce stuff because he doesn't use a whammy bar, but I think that he is respectful to every artist or every guitar player in the Kiss legacy.
Absolutely. And look, you know, it's not a crime that he's play as well as Bruce or Vinny or Mark. Like those guys were just freaks.
Yeah.
But, you know, but that's not the point. The point is he's got to play like the 70s. They were trying to get Bruce to play more like Ace, you know, in the later stages.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really, like you say, it's like with everything with Kiss. And it's not Ace. The reason Ace isn't there is because Ace didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
He left. And I know, you know, he probably now is thinking I'd like to come back, but it's understandable that it's not working. They're kind of, I don't think Paul and Gene, I think Paul and Gene get a bad rap.
Yep.
Unnecessarily. I think they've actually been very, very fair and cool generally. I think, unfortunately, sometimes, you know, some spiteful things can be said unconsciously because they're not like you and I. They're not normal people. They're not living in the normal world. So these things slip out of their mouths sometimes. And I think, but overall, that they probably put up with hard work trying to keep Ace and Peter in the band initially, and maybe longer than other people would have. It's kind of hard if you're not in the inside of the situation. You know, I felt as though they probably protected, particularly Ace, and Peter through that period where I think it was summed up the best by Peter when I heard him say, "Look, Gene and Paul are workaholics, incredibly motivated guys, right? And Ace and I were just rock and roll guys, and Ace is renowned as being a bit on the lazy side, right? Yep. That's what made the magic. The four of them together made the magic. But as Peter said, we were never going to be able to keep up because they're really driven, motivated workaholics.
Yep.
And that's really what happened. It just crumbled because we couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a beautiful way to put it.
Yep.
They were pricks. But I was excited before that symphony gig, they were nice enough to, you know, have a photo with us, and we were able to meet them, and it was an amazing moment. I was so excited to meet Peter. Yep. I'd met Gene before, and it was the first time I'd met Paul. Paul, you know, reached down and said, "Hey, I really like your band, good pop rock." And I was like, I can't believe Paul was just nice to me like that, like,
you know,
support band. And he was really cool. He obviously had to approve for us to be there.
Yeah.
And I know Paul's a fan of the Raspberries and likes his power pop, and so it was a good vibe, a really good vibe. And I met Tommy, and I could just see Tommy just like through me, just thinking, how do these songs go again?
Yeah.
he had a lot of songs to learn.
Well, you even look at
songs he would have had to learn.
If you look at the footage on stage, you can tell that he's trying so hard to stay connected to the audience, but he's actually shitting himself.
Oh, and I don't blame him. It's a big gig. Having been in those shoes myself multiple times. It's like suddenly having to get on stage and do this. Like he must have put a lot of work in.
Yeah.
And again, you know, Ace wasn't there because Ace didn't want to be there. They asked him to be there, but you know, so it was a shame that Ace wasn't there, but that's okay. It's like Tommy did a great job.
Yeah.
Tommy's a professional, you know.
And as much as people do want Ace and Peter to be at the last show, I actually think Kiss are going out the right way with the band that's been consistent for the last 20 years. I think it's just the right way to do it. If they come up and do a guest appearance, great. I'd love to see Bruce make a guest appearance, but I think that
be nice.
Tommy and Eric deserve to see it through because they have been the ones shouldering the load and a whole lot of heat every day.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, obviously Eric less.
Yeah.
Really well loved by everyone. And so, yeah, it's filling those shoes. It's a tough gig. Tommy's done well doing that. But it would be great if Peter and Ace got up at the last show. I think just whether they did the whole show or not, or just the encore, it'd be beautiful, you know. But there's a lot of bad blood amongst them, even though they're brothers, like they all say, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes the brothers are the ones that argue more than anyone, like the Black Crows, you know. It's just so just because they're brothers doesn't mean, and I know the Kiss guys aren't literally brothers, but they might as well be. They've been together since they were babies.
Yeah.
And they've had so much history together.
Yeah. And, you know, while this might be the last show in Australia and, you know, December will be the last shows, they'll continue in some form. May not be touring, and that's fine, but they're going to be connected until they die. So,
yeah. No, I totally agree. I'm expecting, you know, a Vegas residency or just one-off shows or whatever, whether I'm right or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything from the inside, but I do know that the end of the road, I go, okay, so they're not going to tour anymore, but they might do one-offs. You would expect that.
The one that I see happening besides the Vegas residency is select markets around the world. So New York, London, maybe Paris, Melbourne again for a symphony.
Yeah.
I see that happening.
Well, could be right. Could absolutely be right.
Yeah, or an unplugged with the symphony, something like that. I think that would be brilliant. I'd see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know people are going to go, oh, they said they're not going to tour. Well, they're not touring. They're just playing shows. Suck it up, deal with it.
Yeah. I think you're right. You could be right on the money there. That was the interesting thing about the symphony show. Like, obviously, it's a big thing to be the support band on a show like that because it was only the only one they ever did.
Yep.
But it was also DVD and the album is really well put together. On the night, there were obviously changeovers between sets or acts or however you want to put it. Like they came out and just bombarded their way through, you know, like a 45 or whatever of just classics, and they smashed it. And then, you know, there's a changeover, and then they're coming out. There's a few technical funny things, and maybe songs didn't sing like they could have, and you know, so it was a little bit clunky, but it came out really well in the end as a record, you know, but they did really well. I thought, I know, you know, look, it was I had the time of my life. I could not believe I was there. It was surreal. And even the day before going to the sound check, we were asked, you know, you can come along to the sound check if you want. Yeah. And I just walked in and walked straight up to Andrew McManus and hugged him and said, thank you so much. You've got no idea how much of a big deal this is to me, you know. And he just smiled and said, oh, that's fine, you know, but I don't think he realised how big a deal it was until I hugged him.
He would have been, whoa.
And that was the first time I met him.
Yep.
It's so funny, but it was such a great moment.
All right, mate, I'm going to let you go. So what's your final thoughts on everything about to go down in a week or two for Kiss?
Disappointed that Palace of the King isn't the support band. That's my final thoughts.
Awesome.
So, it's a great. Palace of the King was supposed to be the support band at the Sydney show. It got rescheduled.
Yep.
And then through all those weird times the pandemic, and then it didn't happen because we couldn't do the rescheduled dates. So
Right.
that would have been nice. But anyway, yeah, no, I just love them, and I'm glad they're coming back and doing another show. I can't make it; I've got a gig, but it'll be a great night for everyone there. The last time I saw them in Melbourne was amazing. It was a great show.
2015, you get the call to fill in for the Daisies.
Yeah, it was
Who
fun.
were opening with Kiss. So I believe that was the two fill-in models of the Daisies. You and
Lezo.
from the BAs.
Mm.
So were you there to fill in for Fortis?
Yeah, no, funny. I've got it. Richie had recommended me to fill in for Dave Lowy, who, for some reason, business commitments or something, I don't know what, wasn't able to make just a couple of shows. So Richard suggested me. I got the call from their manager, Dave Edwards, and asked me to do it. I said, of course, And Richard texted and said, hey, looks like we're finally going to get a chance to rock out. Awesome. And then he was riding his motorbike somewhere outside of St. Louis, and a bee goes down his jacket, stings him. He has some sort of anaphylactic wig out and comes off his bike on a freeway, broke a few ribs, he punctured a lung, he broke his shoulder, scapula, and bruised kidneys or something. It was a mess.
Yeah.
He got back on the bike and rode it home. And he's saying to the manager, he's saying, look, he said to Lowy, he said, look, I think I can still do it. I think I'll be fine. I just might need to sit down. He was still willing to do the show. So turned out, of course, that he couldn't. And so they got Dave Leslie to fill in. And Dave's great. I've known Dave for a long time. He's a great fellow.
So that would have been, I think you had Marco Mendoza on bass.
It was, Marco.
And Tishy on drums and Karabi on vocals.
Tishy drums, and John.
Yeah, which is funny because both Tishy and Karabi are back in now.
Back there again. That's it.
Yeah.
I love John. John's great fun.
Oh,
he's such a good fella. Yeah.
One of my favorite people in the world. How much rehearsal time did you get for those shows?
One day.
One
day. Yeah.
Like
one day beforehand, and then flew to wherever. Yeah, the next day. Yeah.
Like the Daisies are a pretty well-oiled machine by that point.
Yeah. Marco was helpful, and he would, because he's standing next to Lowy most of the time, and so he, I did do more than one day. I got together with Dave, and he went through the set list and showed me how he played things. So that was kind of, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours doing that.
Yeah.
So that was helpful too, of course, really helpful.
Having someone like Brian Tishy behind you, who's actually a multi-instrumentalist,
he just plays everything, the guy.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable.
Even does a nunchuck and speed bag solo.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh, he didn't do that with you, where he gets up and plays the speedball behind him on the drum kit?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, he does like full tilt drum fills on a boxing speedball.
Good Lord.
And then he has the drumsticks made into nunchucks. Yeah.
So they're chained together.
Yeah.
Oh, how funny.
He's a freak, and he's a great guitar player too.
Yeah, he's a great guitar player. He's a weapon.
So like for me, even though you've toured some massive shows, massive tours, what was it like being on that Kiss tour?
Oh, it's great fun. But you're playing, I love playing big places, of course. Yep. But you're still opening, and you're still sort of you're playing while people are sort of wandering in and sort of like looking up and finding their seats and stuff. So you're always aware of that you're opening. It's always more fun to be the headline.
Yeah. Was there much interaction with any of the boys? They come say hi or anything before the shows?
Not a lot. No, not a whole lot. There was I'll show you. There was we were at the arena here. What they call it?
Oh,
Kudos.
Kudos, yeah.
And we heard this clomping coming down the hallway, and it's not that. Hang on, I'm going to find it. And a 7-foot tall bloody Tommy Thayer comes wandering down the hallway, and Susie got a photo with him quickly. I'll just find it. It's bloody funny, and he was lovely and kind and personable and stuff. It's funny is find yourself standing there having this conversation with someone that looks like he does, and you're talking about, you know, the weather, and it's like, oh, how's it been? Yeah, how's the tour been? And, you know, whatever. Can you see that?
Oh, it's a little bit glary, but you can make it out. Yeah, you can see Tommy's face and Susie's face. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, he was very happy to have his picture taken with Susie. Yeah, funny.
Like when you go out, did you go out like and watch any of the shows, or were you guys sort of out?
Oh yeah. In fact, and I was sniffing out their guitar rigs. I thought their guitars sounded fantastic.
Yeah,
like really brilliant, and that was what persuaded me to get the Hughes and Kettner that I have now, because they were all HK.
Yeah, I think Tommy's is Hughes and Kettner. Paul was still using the Engels at that point, maybe.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I think he had some Engel heads.
Oh yeah, maybe it was. Yeah, maybe it was.
Tommy had that signature Hughes and Kettner.
But mate, I love the sound of the Hughes and Kettner.
Yeah. What did you think of the production once you sniffed out the guitar rigs and you went out? Did you sort of watch them in front of house or?
Yeah. I watched the whole show a couple of times. Yeah, great fun. Just you know, seasoned showman.
Yeah,
brilliant. Just brilliant.
What kind of mark do you think they've left in the music industry, like for you?
It's incomparable. They've been, no, that particularly song-wise, mate, so many great songs. My favorite, Sure Knows Something, that's my favorite, just a cracker. But mate, so many fantastic songs that are easily recognizable and sing-alongable by, it would even be by people that would say, oh, I don't like Kiss. Oh, what about this? Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I do like that one. Yeah. Oh, yeah, what about that? Gonna rock and roll all night. Oh, yeah, I love that. That's really fun. Yeah. It's indelible, mate. Indelible. It's immovable. It's a legacy it's historic. Yeah.
Before I let you go, we said we're going to do it. So it's not us unless we talk Kiss. So as I said to you, I'm doing like a little special on all the bands that are opening. So I was there. You guys opened in Adelaide last year for the first end of the road. Yeah, and you're in the trademark infringing Gene Simmons shirt right there.
Yeah, totally right. Thanks, McLeod. She got this one made for me. King of Thunder, not God of Thunder, but King of Thunder. Yes.
Yep. So only a mild trademark infringement with the font. That's fine. Yeah, we're not worth anything. Don't come after us. But what was it like for you? Like that as a lifelong fan, getting to step onto that stage, and I've walked that stage a couple of times on various tours, and it's even if there's no one in the building, there's just this moment where you go, "Oh shit, I'm on a Kiss stage."
Yeah. So I got down there early. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, I grew up listening to Kiss, and you know, I first heard Kiss Alive when I was like really young, and that was the album that got me. When I heard that, I just went, "Whoa!" And I saw the album and stuff and everything, but whatever. So when we got the show, first and foremost, I was freaking, you know, like, oh my God. And originally it was coming back. And I saw Kiss in 1980 on the 18th of November in Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. And we were going to be playing with Kiss on the 19th of November. What was it? 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So it was almost to the date.
Yep.
But then there was like COVID and everything went on, and there was issues and stuff like that, and so it got pushed back. So we were, and pushed back for years. It wasn't just like 6 months or something. But so that build up, amazing. And I went down to the show early and just sat there and watched the semi-trailers. I sat there and watched the road crew bringing out the road cases. I sat there and watched the walkie-talkie guys, the security guys. I took it all in. And I couldn't believe it. It was amazing. And then I got to go up and speak to James bass tech.
Oh, Burger.
And
Yep.
he said to me, "Hey man, what are you doing with 2 ampegs?" And I said, "Well, after all," I said, "it is a Kiss show. I can't believe you're asking me why I've got 2 amplifiers when,
Yep.
And he said, "Well, we have Gene's amplifier is here and stuff like that." And I was like, "So that's it there?" He's like, "Yeah, this is all Gene's stuff." And he showed me all through the bass gear. And regardless of being a Kiss fan as a kid, as a music fan, looking at somebody's touring rig is almost like going behind the curtain to see exactly. Now, I knew what was in that rig, and I said, "Are you still using such and such effect pedals and things like that?" So we talked stuff like that, and he said, "Oh, here's some bass, but here's his basses. This is what he's using." So I'm just saying, oh my God, for real? Like, music, and then it was all like the circle had sort of completed itself, in the fact that here I am. So I just watched everything. I took it all in. Was I the camera guy? No, I wasn't. But it's all here, and it was here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I took a couple of photos, but for most part, I just wanted to just take it in.
Yeah.
Let's say organically as a part of digital,
I remember when I walked out and found you after I was done shooting. I walked out and found you, and you were just like, still in all.
I couldn't believe I was there. It was brutal.
Yeah,
it was brutal. Yeah. So, and they were really accommodating and really nice people,
Yeah.
And we got our photo with the guys in Kiss at the end there, and they put a lot. It's a big machine.
Yeah.
A Kiss show is a huge machine, so it's very fascinating to see that side of things. How the monitor guys, the video guys in the back behind stage, the video screen set up where they're doing all the screens and stuff like that. It's amazing to see a huge production like that. It's really fascinating. So I was tripping on all of that, and then we'd finished our sound check, and Paul Stanley had come over to us and said, "I've heard a lot about you guys." He said, "Thank you for letting us support you." I said, "Well, thanks very much. We're glad to accommodate you, Paul. Thank you very much." Yeah. And so they were quite good, and having our photos with them and stuff like that. So it was a great experience, and I took it all in. So what it did, it turned me into a 13-year-old kid.
Yep.
That's what it did. And I think that experience, to do that to somebody, is the best. Yeah. So that's how I felt.
To Hanging With Hear 2 Zen, we hope you enjoyed today's episode and guest. Remember to add H2ZHW on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We are also on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to keep up to date on all of our new content. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all of your favorite podcast platforms. We would love if you could take the time to write us a review and leave a comments wherever you have tuned into today's episode. This helps us reach a wider audience and create more amazing content to share with you all. We are grateful for all of your support. Until next time, you have been hanging with H2ZHW.